Democratic Front was established 40 years ago. It was at the forefront of the fight against apartheid. Today, the remaining members are sounding a call to action to reclaim South Africa's democracy. Dignitaries will lay wreaths for those who died in the fight for freedom. Ibrahim Rasool, Cameron Dugmore and Andrew Bahrain are expected to attend. Our reporter Kevin Brandt is attending the event in Mitchell's Plain and joins us now. Now, Kevin, we grew up in various generations, but would have grown up with the stories of the UDF. And one of the leading figures of that I remember very starkly was cleric Alan Busak, who I believe has turned down the invitation to today's event. Can you tell us more about what's planned?
A very good morning to you, Marcel. Indeed, UDF activists earlier today gathered here at the Rockland Civic Centre here in Mitchell's Plain, where a wreath-laying ceremony took place honouring former members of the body. And as you correctly also stated, yes, a key figure, Alan Busak, did not attend the proceedings here today. Outlined in correspondence, Dr. Busak spoke out against the discourse in the country at the moment, and basically saying, in short, that the UDF activists are sitting by while these scenes are playing out in the country, and that it's not in line with what the UDF stood for back in August 1983, 40 years ago, when it was formed here in the Western Cape, in Mitchell's Plain, in Cape Town. So we spoke to a number of the activists who were present here at the Civic Centre earlier today. They reflected on what it was like living in South Africa back then, and their fight for liberation, their fight for a non-racial and a non-sexist society, and also reflecting on where South Africa is now 4 decades later, whether or not it is in line with what the activists then set out for the country to be like. Also spoke to the current ruling party and what is playing out in South African society at the present moment. But joining me now is Veronica Simmers. She was one of the founding members here of the UDF. She was present here in 1983 when it was formed. Thank you so much for speaking to us, ma'am. If you reflect 40 years ago in 1983, can you tell us what was it like here? What was the mood like? And more importantly, what was it like living in South Africa here in Cape Town at the time?
And especially living in Mitchell's Plain, because Mitchell's Plain is an area that was created by the previous regime to maintain one of its acts, the Group Areas Act, which they successfully implemented. It also happened at a time when the previous regime banned our organizations like the Women's League, the ANC Youth League, the South African Textile Union. And it was important for us to identify a structure who could represent our communities at all levels. We then decided to use the Freedom Charter to knock on people's doors, to ask them what is the kind of problems they experience in their house. You know, it was a time when people could not afford to pay electricity. There was dampness of houses. We had in Gugulethu, for instance, we had the police of that time going into the area. They sent the Witdoeke into the area to fight our people. We were hassled by the security police, many of us. And then in order for us to bring down the previous regime, we went into churches, we used the religious sector, we used the mosques, we used the churches, we approached the sports bodies, whatever organizations or structures we could find that will help us bringing the previous government down. It was tough, it wasn't easy, there was no thing like freedom of speech. We couldn't operate freely because we were watched by the security forces all the time. I was even visited, and people like comrades like the late Johnny Issel, Marcus Solomon, they nurtured me in order to be able to deal with the police. I'm not the only one, it was many of us. So when we were informed that the UDF launch will take place in Mitchell's Plain, it really, as I'm standing here, I'm even emotional. You know, it was, we recommitted ourselves to the aims, promoting the aims and the objectives of the ANC. It wasn't a situation whereby we could freely go, although being nervous, although we were watched, to go into people's houses to talk about what we would like to achieve, what our major goal was to bring this regime down, to elect a government for the people, a government by the people. And you know, if I should talk about the national launch of the UDF here in Mitchell's Plain, although during those years, Mitchell's Plain had no economic activity, it was just houses. It was houses, churches, no recreational facilities, no proper, not enough schools. We qualified for General Hospital, we didn't even have that in Mitchell's Plain. We knocked on all doors we could. We also had the newspaper Grassroots. We used pamphlets, we used flyers, we organized people at all levels. We really went out to sacrifice our lives to this cause. And then we were so fortunate to have the national launch of the UDF here in Rocklands, where I'm standing, and it's an area where we moved into in 1978.
Ma'am, just one last question to you. Is what you set out back then what you see play out in modern day South Africa now, in particular with regard to the ruling party and our government?
This is a very sad situation. It's a very difficult question. But because, unfortunately, and I'm not going to refer to the ANC, I'm not going to refer to the leadership because we are the ANC. I'm going to say that we've made many mistakes. If I think of today, we should have had all those community members here to talk of why they became or even become disillusioned, because they are the ones who should inform us as to what is it what we have together with them take up to make South Africa a better country to live in. You know, if I look at, we have actually lost our focus, because what we promised and said then is not happening. Yes, few changes have taken place. But if you look at the issue, I'm not even going to, because there are many who are going to talk about, let me not talk about it, not even mention it. But if we can, because during those years it was the civic associations in the Western Cape that played a major role, a pivotal role, especially in the launch of the UDF. We organized the youth. Today, they are no more 13 and 11 years old. You're looking at youngsters who are now 60 and over. But we even organized the youth structures in the Western Cape.
Thank you very much for your sentiments, ma'am. I appreciate it. Marcel, that was Veronica Simmers. She's one of the founding members of the UDF back here in 1983. She was present at the Rockland Civic Centre, just reflecting on 40 years, but also speaking about modern day South Africa and what she feels like society is like at the moment for many South Africans living here.